first workday, several ladies from the community surprised us with hot pizza for lunch. It may not sound like much, but to hungry teenagers expecting cold sandwiches, it was everything. These wonderful ladies continued to bring us delicious lunches throughout the week. Fried chicken, 6-foot-long sandwiches, and even more pizza. I've never been so grateful for hot lunch. Through those lunches, we got to know each other better and members of the community better. I met an amazing woman, Edna, who was originally from Jamaica and moved to London to become a nurse. Now she lives in New York, too close to her only daughter. Through those 4 days, we formed a very special bond, and I know that I'll never forget her. I'm so grateful for these feasts where proclaimers of God's love could come together in community.
Along with Transfiguration in St. Paul's, there was another church in the Bronx called St. Edmunds. And after a long workday on our third out of the 4 workdays, we all couldn't wait for this meal we had been hearing about all week. When I got there, I saw members of St. Edmund working very hard in the kitchen, preparing food for 7 churches coming together. We all packed into the basement and became one church community. Before we ate, we had some words from the pastor and sang songs together. It was a beautiful experience. It's one I will never forget. You could see the joy on everyone's face when we started to realize that we were able to come together from our different backgrounds. When I saw the members of the 3 churches we worked at so delighted to have us there, I knew we were there and we were making a huge difference.
So, going back to Tuesday, which was our second workday, and in the afternoon and into the evening, we had a people scavenger hunt. So we had this list of people we had to find. People wearing hats, people who loved love, people that were happy to live. And so we went around the neighborhood around our hostel and looked for people. And we would ask them what their name was and take a picture of them with one or more members of our group and ask them what they loved most in the world. And some of our responses were their job, or their family, or their friends. But there was one man that took probably about 35 minutes, guaranteeing our last place in the treasure hunt, but it was definitely worth it. Because Jim was his name. He was 85 or something, and we were looking for someone sitting down. And so we saw Jim sitting on a park bench, and he didn't look that friendly, and we were skeptical to go up to him since we weren't sure what his response would be. But right away, he opened up, and he talked to us about everything, about how he had met Ella Fitzgerald and many famous people just right there, right in New York City, right, I think exactly where he was sitting. But he had so many messages, and he talked about who knew that we would get to know so much from this man who we were looking for because he was sitting down. And he talked about how to get somewhere in life, don't do drugs. Don't do drugs. And he talked about how you should know someone who's already big, who's already going somewhere, and don't hang around with people that don't really care or aren't getting somewhere. But for me, the biggest message that stuck out was your mindset. He said that your mindset is everything, because you can do anything if you think you can. And then he got up and started dancing. An 85-year-old man. He said, I think I'm young, so I can do this. I'm 85, but I'm still young, and I can still dance. And you can do whatever you want, as long as you think you can, as long as you believe you can. And because of this really made me think about a lot of things, and I apply it to my life right now, every day at school, at home. And I think it's a really important message. And I still can't believe that we found it. We learned it from this man who we were looking for because he was sitting down. Everyone here is sitting down. And I just found it was amazing message. And I can't believe that we were so lucky to get to know him, and I will always remember him.
It's one of those things where, as a pastor, you get a little bit nervous when your phone goes off with a text message saying, "We don't think we're going to be back on time. Is that okay?" And all of a sudden, 35 minutes later, they come running in, but beaming about the experience that they have had as they went out to talk about We Love Love and finding out what people loved there on the streets of New York. The messages and the community that was forged in those moments was incredible. Looking to people who were smiling, people who were in uniform. They talked with police officers and firefighters, with waiters and waitresses, with people who were homeless. They got to meet the people of New York within just a few blocks of the hostel, alongside the people that they got to build relationships with out in the South Bronx. Now, it was on Friday night, after our week in New York and all of the work in the churches, as well as some fun touring around Central Park and Times Square, and for some even going to see Wicked on Broadway, that then most of us made our way to the airport. There, many gathered food from little vendors in the airport, and we created our own little banquet area tucked between chairs and benches in the airport. And at the gate, we talked through the week. We shared the places where we saw God's presence. We talked about how other people and communities were fed, both literally and spiritually. And significantly, we talked about how we in turn were fed by them, recognizing that it is a two-way street, that it's about accompanying each other wherever we are at on the journey. Sometimes we don't realize the feast to which we are called, or the feast that is set before us. Sometimes, as Lily pointed out, we do, but in hindsight. In New York, we came with a realization of where God had called us, and the table that is set for us. What a feast. This day, we have the opportunity to share a little bit of that feast with you, and with our brothers and sisters in New York and around the world.